in order for us to check whether this will work, what we need to do is the following. So I want to make sure that when the application starts up, if we open application.yaml, so JPA Hibernate and then DDL auto in here, we're going to change this to something else. So if I put my mouse in here under DDL auto, you can see that we have disable DDL language, disable DDL handling, validate the schema, and this makes no changes to database, and then update the schema if necessary, create and whatnot. So we want to validate to make sure that our entity, so this entity called customer, is valid against our schema. So let's change that to from none to validate. Now let's restart. And you can see that in here we have an error. So the increment size for the sequence is set to 50 in the entity mapping, while the associated database sequence increment size is 1. So remember, so we'll fix this. So if I go back to the database and let's get this sequence and then say \d and then this sequence, have a look. So the increment is 1 in here and the start is also 1. But if I show you the entity, so within IntelliJ, let me just collapse this, open up customer, and in here, so we have the sequence. And here, if I say comma, and then on a new line, command P, you can see that we have initial value, default to 1, and allocation size 50. So we have to change this guy here because we want our sequence to increment by 1. So let's just say default. Oops, sorry. Let's just say init value. So this will be 1. So we want to make sure that we actually match fully. And then the allocation size, so instead of 50, we want this to be 1. Now, obviously, we could actually remove this because the default is 1. So let's just get rid of it. And there we go. Now let's run. And hopefully this should work. And it didn't. So it's still saying the same thing. So the size of customer ID sequence is set to 50. And I think it's because of this name right here. So let's just make sure that the name is also customer ID sec, right? So make sure that this is sec, as well as sec. So customer ID sequence. So hopefully this should work. So let's just try one more time. And there we go. So it did work. So this is really good stuff. Now, obviously, so if I now hide this and go back to, so let's just go back to the application.yaml for a second. So here we are validating to making sure that our entity called customer matches whatever schema that we have full control with Flyway. Now within main, I can just remove this and it should just work as before. So in here, in fact, I think, yeah, so in here, basically, we don't have anyone with alex@gmail.com, nor Jamila. So let's just restart this. And this should work. There we go. And you can see the statement that went in. And if we go to our database, and if I press Control and then L, and then select star from customer, enter, you can see that this indeed worked. And the ID is 3 and then 4. And that's because before we deleted the Alex, which was duplicate and had the ID 2. Therefore, that ID will never get reused. But you can see that this is working. Now we have yet another issue. And that is if I go back to IntelliJ and if I try to reload the application once more, this will fail. And it fails because we have alex@gmail.com already exists and the same for jamila@gmail.com. So we are doing the right thing. So congratulations. Now, obviously, we can leave this code in here, or we can remove it. And in fact, let me give you an exercise where I want you to change this so that we have random names as well as random emails. So each time we reload the application, we should have a random name and email using Maven Faker dependency. You'll see the instructions for the exercise on the next lecture. This is all for now. Catch me on the next one.